as part of the questions that I gave you from the beginning of this class, I asked the question, I said, can there be any other way of removing a director aside what? Aside the statutory removal under CAMA? That question presupposes that there is what? A statutory removal. How do you remove a director statutory? For you to determine that, you are going to check for section 288 subsection 1. And it says that a company may by ordinary resolution, resolution, remove a director before the expiration of his period of office, notwithstanding anything in its articles or in any agreement between the company and him. You can remove what? A director by ordinary resolution, notwithstanding anything in its what? Articles or in any agreement between the company and him. And use ordinary resolution to remove it. But then the question is this. The first question it asks is, when section 288 sub 1 says a company may by ordinary resolution remove what? A director. Who is the company in this particular regard? You remember when we were looking at corporate governance, I told you that you find certain provisions in CAMA. Now only what make reference to what? A company. But then you have also been able to know, as Professor Gowa once said, that a company can either be the members in general meeting or the board of directors. And they pointed out to you that in this instance, the company they are talking about is the members in general meeting, the shareholders. They can remove what? A director through ordinary resolution. Now, it is important that I first state that you see this provision in CAMA is not a novel provision. It's not novel. It's not new. In England, this provision has its own historical trajectory. For instance, check section 303 of the Companies Act, that is the UK Companies Law Act of 1985. It provided for the same thing. 303 of UKCA of the Companies Act 1985. It says a director may always be removed from the board of directors by ordinary resolution in a general meeting, notwithstanding anything that is stated in the company's articles or in any contract with the director. That is in 1985. Companies Act of 1985, section 303. Suffice to also point out that even before 1985, if you look at before 1985, you understand that this particular provision that you say that the company can remove the director by ordinary resolution, notwithstanding anything in the articles of association, it was the proposition made by the Cohen Committee. There was a committee known as the Cohen Committee, C-O-H-E-N. The Cohen Committee of 1945 was the one that made this proposition. That as part of of our corporate jurisprudence, we should have such a provision. Currently, this provision of section 288 sub 1 can be found in section 168 of the UKCA 2006. Section 168 of the UK CA 2006, which is our own section 1288 of CAMA 2020. Don't forget also that our current section 288 used to be section 262 of CAMA 1990. It used to be section 262 of CAMA 1990. So if you check section 262, you check this now, you find the same provision. Now let us interrogate the scope of section 288 sub 1. CAMA, the former CAMA, now CAMA 1990. Now, the thrust of section 288 sub 1 shows us that the company has the liberty to remove what a director whenever the company so or desire. Once the company wants to remove what a director, you have the liberty to what to remove it, to remove him or what or her. And this was emphasized in the case of OOU versus OCAFO. Sorry, UOO versus OCAFO. In the case of UOO versus what OCAFO. UOO versus OCAFO. But emphasize the fact that this provision allows the company to remove what the director whenever the company so desires. Does this not attempt to show that it would appear that perhaps directors do not enjoy job or security? Does it not portend that directors do not enjoy job security? Because if you are saying that companies can remove directors whenever they so desire, and you even made it to the ordinary resolution, not a special resolution, meaning that you make it easy. Does it not mean that it may appear that directors do not enjoy job or security, and they may perhaps be removed anyhow? If that is your conclusion, what do we make of the provision of section, what is that section again? Section 87 sub 4, that says that directors are not bound to obey the directions or instructions of the members in general meeting. What if they do not obey them? And as a result of the fact that they are not being obeyed, they decided to activate section 288, because it says you can remove them whenever they so desire. As we will proceed, we will begin to realize that it will be a wrong conclusion to say that the directors do not enjoy job security, because there are ways that directors can protect and secure their employees. Do you understand? Say, don't divide this class. Now, also from the clear wordings of section 288 sub 1, certain elements must be in place for there to be removal of the director. First is that removal must be by ordinary resolution, not a special resolution. Ordinary resolution, not a special resolution. The question is, what is an ordinary resolution? The definition of an ordinary resolution can be found in section 258 subsection 1 of CAMA. Section 258 subsection 1 of CAMA 2020. It defines ordinary resolution. And it says a resolution is an ordinary resolution when it has been passed by a simple majority of votes. By a simple majority of votes. That is the highest vote. Even if it is 10 to 11, that's what? That's a majority. So it may be that only one vote will determine whether the director stays or whether the director leaves. It's ordinary. It's not special resolution. In a special resolution, you also find the definition of a special resolution under section 258 subsection 2. So you begin to see, when I said that section 288 makes it look like the shareholders can easily remove directors by stating that it should be ordinary resolution. Ordinary resolution, simple majority. You just count who have the highest vote, that justice. They do not have a particular benchmark. They don't have a target that they must meet. There's not like a third majority. There's not like third, fourth majority. There is not that you must have 70%. You can have the highest number of votes and yet not have maybe 70%, not have third majority. Meaning that when we are speaking of special resolution, any matters that deal with use of special resolution, you find out that it makes it somewhat hard to make that decision. That is not the case with respect to the removal of the director. So section 258 sub 2 says the resolution is special when it has been passed by at least 3/4 of the votes cast by members of the company as votes in person or by proxies at a general meeting. Or by proxies or what at a general meeting. Of which 21 days notice must have been given You see, this one is not simple majority. This one is cut 4. So the special resolution is said to be passed by at least 3/4. 3/4 should be actually like 70% or so. Like 3/4 of the members, it's actually like 75%. Yes, like you will have like 75% for votes. Yes, 75% votes. Hello? You must have 75% vote. It's different from just having the highest vote. So meaning that by the time we count the vote, we have the highest vote saying that what the director should be. But if it does not meet what 75%, then it cannot be. But that is not the case because CAMA said ordinary resolution. Are you following? Ordinary resolution. Another element of 288 sub 1 is that a director can be removed before the expiration of his office or of his employment, so to say. A director can be removed before the expiration of his employment. So you can maybe employ a director for 2 years. Before the 2 years lapses, then what? You remove it. It's possible. All of these, all of these, they more or less amplify the suggestion that I made earlier, that perhaps directors do not enjoy job or security. And remove them even before their tenure ends. Are you following? This means that what? Directors will have the period of employment that is governed by the provisions in the Articles of Association or an agreement between him and the company. Hello? When you employ a director, when you appoint a director, they are on contract. That contract may be a personal contract between the director and the company, or it may be that what is a contract that is recognized in the Articles of Association. Hello, are you following? Now, whether it is a contract between him and the company, or it is in the Articles of Association, they can terminate it by way of removal before the period lasts. Are you following? You see that section 288 says, notwithstanding anything in its articles or in any agreement between the company and him, they can remove. So meaning that the director may be removed whenever the shareholders desire. Are you following? Now, the next thing we want to interrogate is there any other way to remove a director aside section 288? Is there any other way to remove a director aside section 288? Section 288 says, you only remove a director by way of ordinary resolution. And you can remove the director before the expiration of his office. Section 288, as we will later consider, is that it provides for special notice. Section 288, as you also come to realize, particularly section 288 sub 6, provides for compensation. We should look at all of this. But before we look at that, before we leave 288 sub 1, the question is, can there be any other way to remove the director aside section 288? Which what is necessarily translated into? That we want to interrogate what we mean by alternative removal framework. Alternative removal framework, ARF. The company can have another mechanism, another framework for removing a director. Now, the first pointer, the first thing that lets the cat out of the bag that a director may be removed under another scheme aside section 288 can be found in that section 288 sub 2. Section 288 subsection 2. It shows us that maybe another way can exist. Maybe there can be an alternative removal framework. And what does section 288 sub 2 say? I told you anytime I was reading out CAMA. Make sure if I write the entire provisions out, follow it. It sticks that way. Section 288 sub 2 says a special notice is required of any resolution to remove a director under this section. Hello? A special notice is required of any resolution to remove a director under this one section. When section 288 sort to say under this section, it leads us to ask the question, oh, does that mean that there may be another section where a director can be removed? I don't know whether you understand what we are trying to do. What we are saying is that ordinarily, when a company wants to remove a director, they are supposed to follow section 288. But we're not trying to see whether there can be another way to remove a director without following section 288. And I'm telling you that the first thing that tends to answer that question in the affirmative is the introductory wordings of section 288 sub 2, which says that a special notice is required if the director is to be removed under this section. I said, you see that phrase under this section, it's a prepositional phrase. That prepositional phrase under this section can lead us to ask the question whether there can be another section where the director can be removed. It does not answer the question, but it begins to help us to suspect that there is perhaps another way of removing the director aside under section 288 somewhere. But perhaps a more authoritative and a more revealing section that there can be an alternative removal framework. When we say alternative removal framework, we mean another way of removing the director aside section 288 is the provision of section 46 subsection 3. I don't know why you guys are writing, because all of this we've done understand? Because we don't know any government, so we write. But we've done it before. So under section 46 sub 3, I'm only going through because of this review. Under section 46 sub 3, it says what? It says where the memorandum or articles empower any person to appoint or remove any director. Here the word memo or articles empower empower any person to reappoint or remove any director or other officer of the company. It says such power shall be enforceable by that person, notwithstanding that is not a member or officer of the company. What does it tell us? It means that the company can give a person power either in its memo or in its articles of association to remove a director. Does it not tell us that the director can be removed by a person without necessarily following section 288? If you give a person power in your memo or in your articles of association, that you have the right to remove any director. That means that whenever the person wants to remove the director, the person does not have to follow section 288. The person will follow whatever it is that we said in the articles of association or in the memorandum of association. You see, this alternative removal framework, before it used to be only the articles of association. But under CAMA, it says if you give any person power, either under the memo or the articles of association. Can you think of the reason why a company will want to give a person power under the memo as against the articles of association? Or why if a company wants to give you the power to remove the director, of course, before the company will give anybody power to remove the director, that means you are like the life of the company. Do you understand what I'm saying? You are like the life of the company. Maybe it is that you want to borrow them money or something. Company cannot just give that power is powerful. You understand? So they cannot just give it to any other person. Now, when they want to give it to you, they say it can be either in the articles of association or in the memo. If it were you, which one would you prefer? Is it the articles or in the memo? Article. I'm asking you, I'm looking at you. If it were you, articles, why? Why would you prefer that the power should be conferred on you pursuant to the articles of association as against the memo? You can what? Now this rock down what's that? I'm not going to beat you now. Yes, if you are the one being given the power, why would you want a power to be given to you, contrary to a document that is alterable or anytime? Remember when we did alteration of articles, the other cases of Ekman and Kent, all the cases of side bottom and pressure, cases like Denmark. So we did so many cases, Rielis war case and all like that, Sitco and all, bottom and all. They said you can always vote, you can always amend your articles of association. You can even amend the article of association retrospectively. That's what happened in Ekman and Kent, right? And no company has the power to contract out the power to alter or articles of what association. If you do not want any alteration to apply to you, then you should have what the personal guarantee. You did all of these things in the first. Now we don't want that kind of what? That kind of power. Because the articles can be easily amended, altered. Are you following? But if it is in the memo, don't forget, the memo is also an untraceable document. Quite alright. So if you look like there is no difference between the article of association and the memo. But don't forget that you can always have entrenched or provisions in your memo. You can't have entrenched provisions in the articles of association. You have them in the memo in Nigeria. Of course, when you go to UK, check section 22 of UK CA 2006. Of course, you have your entrenched provisions in your articles of association. Are you following? So if you want it to be entrenched, right? What do? Well, that power should be in the what? In the memo. But you see what I've just done really isn't important as far as this semester is concerned. I just want you to have a practical view of what is important here is the fact that a company can have an alternative or removal framework, and section 46 subsection 3 shows us that the company can empower a person in its memo or in its articles of association to do what? To remove a director. Are you following? Another provision that also shows that the company can have an alternative framework is section 288 sub 6. You see, at the tail end of the provisions of section 288 sub 6, you see that it provides for something that suggests that it can be an alternative framework. See that in section 288 sub 6, let's read. It says that nothing in this section, nothing in this work section is taken as depriving a person removed under it of compensation or damages payable to him in respect of termination of his appointment, terminating with that as a director, or as derogating from any power to remove a director, which may exist apart from this work section, which may exist. That is a power to remove a director, which may exist apart from this work section. Meaning that what? The end part of section 288 sub 6 add what? Section 46 sub 3 in what? Management. Yes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because in section 46 sub 3 it says you can empower someone in your memo or what? Article of association to remove a director. Right? That power is independent of what? Of the power to remove a director under section 288. Hello? These provisions show us categorically that aside section 288, the company also has another way of removing a director. And that way is what we call the alternative removal framework. What does this now tell us? What should this idea of alternative removal framework, what should it tell me? Hello? What should it tell us? You know, under 288 is about shareholders removing directors. Hello? Under the alternative removal framework, who determines who removes a director? If the memo can determine, it means the content of the memo is determined by the company. If it is the article of association, the content of the article of association is determined by who? By the company. So that means under the alternative framework, the company will determine who can work, remove a director. That is to show you that the answer whether a director can remove a fellow director is what? Yes. If it is provided for under the alternative removal framework. Because it may be that it is a fellow director that was empowered in the memo or articles to be able to remove another director. So, because Professor Bulu asked us that question, can a director remove a director? The question is yes. The ground for answering that is what? That it can be alternative removal framework. How do we have the alternative removal framework? Section 43, 46 sub 3, and the end part of section 288 sub 6. These are what you use. Now let me give you a case where the director removed another director pursuant to an alternative removal framework. That's the case of vessel manufacturing versus Berry. Vessel manufacturing versus what? Berry. And that's right in Berry's case. Vessel manufacturing versus what? Berry. Vessel manufacturing limited versus Berry. So in this case, Berry and his wife, they were the first directors of a private company, and later they were appointed as permanent life directors by the company's article of association. However, there was an article 16H, which provided that the permanent life directors shall have power. The article said the permanent life directors shall have the power to terminate forthwith the directorship of any of the ordinary directors by notice in writing. Can you see it's in their article of association saying that those that are the permanent or life directors, that is Berry and his wife, they have the power to remove another director. How will they remove them? Just by way of what? Notice in writing. You begin to appreciate why a company may need alternative removal framework. Because under section 288, it provides for special notice, and issues begin to arise by the time we interrogate the entire section 288. Meaning, you may remove or a company may purportedly remove a director, and yet the court will say that removal was invalid because it did not follow the provisions of 288 to the latter. So if you want it to be what? To be easy, what do? You empower. Are you following? You empower a person to be able to remove, so that the whole idea of fair hearing, now the person must have special notice. You don't need, you must make representations. You don't need that. Of course, you still have to pay him compensation. That's why 288 sub 6 says, whether it is under 288 you are removing, or by any other part that may exist apart from this section, that particular director has been removed is still entitled to compensation. We shall come to compensation. But in this case of vessel manufacturing versus Berry, you see that there was that particular provision in the article of association. But the problem is that Berry's wife died, I mean Mr. Berry's wife. She died, so the question was whether the man, Berry, can exercise that power alone to remove another. And the court said, yes, I can do so. So when you need a case, for alternative removal framework, you have the case of vessel manufacturing versus Berry. Now, there is also a case that shows that it does not matter. It does not matter whether the person that exercises the power to remove the director exercises it malevolently, malicious. It doesn't matter. As long as you are empowered, the person, that person can remove. Now look at the case of Lily versus Chong Wen Chia. You don't write the case, but you begin to at least appreciate the case of Lee versus Chong Wen Chia. That's the case. You know what happened in this case? This case is a funny case. A director, this director was asking too many questions. How is this? You guys share with that. They said you guys did. They were like, you kept asking questions and questions. You just wanted to know everything that was going on in the company. So he was asking information about the company's dealings. And these ones were like, it's like this one just wants to come and review and expose us. You know what happened? He went to meet the secretary and say, secretary, the director, when he wants to convene a meeting, can actually do so through the secretary. So They said, secretary, please convene what a board or meeting. In that board meeting, he wanted to ask questions about the company's meeting. As he went to meet with the secretary to convene the board meeting, the people that had what the power to remove what the director. What did they do? They removed him what 2 days before the what the meeting. Yeah, they removed him 2 days because in the meeting he was most likely going to expose what the activities. So 2 days before the meeting that he wanted to convene, they did what they removed him. But you know that they would not have been able to remove him under 2 days because of what special law notice 28 days. But because they had power, this alternative removal framework in the article of association, the person had power just for activating it. They moved him 2 days before, so the meeting could not work. Oh, it was no longer event. We are going to end the class on imperatives for alternative removal framework, so I can go for our next class. Somebody should check it.
The sentence is not.
Somebody should try and join whether the class has started. Now, imperatives. What do I mean by imperatives? It says that why would companies have an alternative removal framework? Why would companies have an alternative removal framework? Understand. Why would companies need or have an alternative removal framework? Why? The first is that a company may be desirous of making removal to even be more difficult than Section 288. You see that alternative removal framework is not only for ease. A company, I said the first reason may be that the company wants to make removal of directors to be more difficult, perhaps to protect minority interest. So if you want to make the removal, directors have a duty to protect minority interest. The same way they have a duty to even protect the employees of the company. So to protect minority interest, you may want to make the removal to become more difficult. So how would you do so? Well, you know that once you are provided for alternative removal framework, any person that wants to activate it must follow it to the letter. Hello? So what do? Confide the power on that person. But say that removal can only be effected by way of special resolution. Because 288 provided for ordinary resolution, you can provide for special resolution in the article of association. It makes the removal to become more difficult. Second reason, a company may want to empower another director to remove a fellow director. A company may want to empower another director to remove a fellow director. Since 288 deals with what? The shareholders. So you use your alternative removal framework to empower a director to remove another fellow director. The third reason, a company may not want to afford the removed director the right to fair hearing. A company may not want to afford the removed director or director to be removed a fair hearing. Because if you do so under 288, you have to give the director a fair hearing. Just now, when you are serving the notice, you know the members, they must get the notice. Now, you give the director the power, the time to make representations, to defend himself. And his defense will be communicated to the members in general it's like through the notice that you have served them. So as they are reading your own ground for saying you want to remove it, they are also reading his defense. And you know that if the duration in which he made his representations, it is too late, the law says at the general meeting, then he should be allowed to defend himself. And if he's not defending himself, that representations should be read out, except where representations are defamatory. So there is a right to fair hearing when you want to remove a director under Section 288. But if the company does not want you to have right to fair hearing, you do so. You do what? Use alternative removal framework. Look at Lincoln 1. You want to convene a meeting? You want to vote? Them like this. What did they do? They kicked him out before the meeting could be held. No fair hearing, nothing. So you can use your alternative removal framework for that. 4. Of course, this work deals also with the third one. A company may want to dispense with the requirement of notice, that is, requirement of special notice. The company may want to dispense with the requirement of special notice. Has evidence class started?
Yes.
You can start. The man is already teaching. Go on, yes.
Requirement
Of special notice. At any rate, the alternative removal framework is commonly used by subsidiary companies. It's commonly used by subsidiary companies to allow the owning company to remove the directors of the subsidiary. You know owning a subsidiary now. So ordinarily, if you have a subsidiary company, if you want to remove what? The director, it should be the what? The shareholders of that subsidiary company that should remove the company, not that of the what? Or the owning company. So if the owning company wants to remove the directors of the subsidiary company, they will always provide for an alternative removal framework by empowering the owning company to remove the directors of the subsidiaries. At the end of the day, what the conclusion thus far is that when shareholders want to remove a director, they have a choice. They have what? A choice. Either they do so under section 288 or under the alternative removal framework. In the next class we continue. We can go for our class. I'll see you next time.